Hello everyone, welcome back to the KMTRADERS channel. So this is the full market analysis volume 91. Again, giving you an insight of what we think is going to happen next week and compare our analysis from our last week's video as well. So we are going to go through the whole entire list of our pairs and just work our way down. So essentially we'll start off with gold. So what we looked at last week was a possibility of seeing price push down. So we had two scenarios. We were either expecting price to possibly push a bit lower before turning around towards the upside. I think we pretty much saw this. So now that we've seen price push up, there's one thing I'm looking at and keeping in the back of my mind, and that is another possibility of price pushing lower. So if we get rid of this annotation, essentially what we could expect to see is one more push lower before we have that huge rally towards the upside. But again, I am pretty bullish on gold for now, just until we get to this 1840 barrier. Pretty much I want to inspect what's going to happen from this point, because what we could see is price to continuate and push higher and higher, or we'll either see some form of rejection, and if so, we'll end up rallying lower than the 1680 barrier, which is this red zone. So essentially that's what I'm looking at for now. I am quite happy with this push towards the upside. I think it was the NFP that was last week, so we had some price alterations and price pushes towards the upside. There is this huge push towards the upside, so I'm not entirely too sure if this is going to continue, based on the fact that how price has been, sideways moving here. So what we could expect as a possibility is price pushing lower, or the other option is price does respect this low, and we start to continue higher. So I'm just going to keep those two projections in line here. Again, this is where price action and your understanding of when to take an entry is very crucial, because again, if you don't see the right things, there's no point taking that trade, and therefore you won't even be able to participate in the market if you're wrong. But yeah, let's just pretty much leave this with gold. I think I'm pretty happy with that. Again, we're pretty much waiting for 1840 to be hit. So again, I'm looking at a buy bias, and this is only valid unless we stay above this 1680 barrier. Okay, so moving on to Euro USD. So what I was inspecting or looking at is for pretty much like a pullback or some sort of push up. Didn't really get that as such, but essentially I think we are pretty much hedging our way lower and lower. We're even pushing into possibly 1.15, so I'm not going to look at any possibilities towards the upside yet for now. I think what the best case scenario is for this pair is we could still look for a short-term a short-term sell into 1.15 possibly, but I think the second scenario that we've drawn from last week is probably playing out a little bit better than what I did expect. So what I'm looking at for now is this, essentially just the turnover, and if we start to break into 1.16, even 1.65, we could look at a retest trade of such, and we can expect this rally to continue higher. Essentially that's what I'm looking at for anyway. I've been mentioning this rally for a long time, not a long time, sorry, but a couple of weeks ago, but I am expecting price to push up higher, essentially into 1.235. But again, we've got all these levels to kind of work with. So for now, I'm just really waiting for price to see if it can turn around. And if so, it may be this week, or it may be in a few days after next week that we start to get our perfect entries in. But again, we're just waiting for this bullish momentum to kick in. So for now, we can see prices just pretty much sideways moving. It still has the possibility to, rapidly push higher, but ultimately I think, in terms of probability wise, it could still drop off and push a bit lower. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much the two scenarios that I'm keeping an eye out for Euro USD. So moving on to Nzd Usd. So for this pair, essentially what I'm trying to do is see if we can still stay bullish with this one. Respecting this low here, and as prices pushed up higher, just trying to see if we can still push up with the market. So essentially, there is a possibility of price pushing up higher, so I'm going to leave that as such for now. But again, we are long-term bullish on this still, for the next big move. So there is a possibility that price could make its way up towards the upside and then drop off. So this is a second scenario that I'm also keeping in mind for this week. And pretty much the reason for this is we can see prices, it wasn't necessarily as strong as I was anticipating. But essentially price has just been really consolidating and really, it looks very congested. So to me, there is a possibility of price, it could have a little sell-off before we start to rally up higher. So again, it could look something like this. Okay, we're pretty much targeting, the first target is 0.73, but essentially we're trying to find the last point of all of this sell pressure before we find the ultimate buying point of the market, where everything just flips around on us. Okay, so again, this is our first scenario where we think price is just going to rapidly push up. The second scenario possibility, again, we have price to break this high, so around 0.7, and we have some sort of sell-off condition, and we push into 0.685, and this is where it's going to be interesting, because we're going to have, well, we'll be really close to this low, and if we do break this low, again, we can look at a retest trade here like we mentioned last week. So they're all the kind of analysis, the routes and scenarios that I'm thinking of. So again, as price plays out, it will be pretty much obvious of what's happening. So again, we can eliminate just to one scenario as time progresses. Okay, so yeah, let's move on now to Aud USD. So for this one, again, I'm having a similar situation with Nzd USD. So what we expected was a possible push lower before we had to push higher. We did have that sort of play out, I guess, but it wasn't as strong as I was anticipating. So I'm going to just move this sideways for now. And essentially what I'm possibly looking into is for price to break this low that we've got roughly at 0.72. Again, this doesn't have to happen. Okay, this is a scenario that I'm thinking that could happen. Okay, but there is a possibility, as price has just been shifting upwards. If we just take a look at this as a trend, sorry, as an uptrend, if we get this break, we could actually see price drop, break the 0.72 low, and then from there we could watch out for any switches of momentum to push up higher. That could arguably work, but again, that also leaves us a possible trade to take to the sell, to a sell side. Now if that does happen, we could also have the possibility of it running below this low here, and if we can get into a sell, and that's if price gives us that opportunity to sell, we could have a position here, and if we don't get a turnaround here, because we are very close to the low, it could fall through, and in that case we'll have all this area to fall from, and again, we can then possibly look at a retest to take another sell. But again, that could all change if price decides to push and rally higher and rallies higher. So in this case, what we could see for a buying option is if we start to go above possibly the 0.74 barrier. So essentially this zone. Let me break it here. If we start to push up high like this, we could expect something like that, and then that continuation higher. So essentially that would be my bullish scenario, again, I think there is a possibility of pushing lower, so I'll probably stick with this. But if we start to push up higher and higher, because we're not really at a strong fib level, we're rejecting the 50%, so we'll see really what happens here. If we can get that turnaround, then that would be great. But yeah, ideally we could be looking at price pushes towards the downside. So let's check the pip count, just under 150 pips. So there is a small amount there, but again, the bigger one, if you are looking to hold long term, again, I think this would be your best case scenario, waiting for that buy momentum to shift. But that will probably be next week or so, because this will take a long time to develop. Okay, so yeah, they're the three scenarios that I'm projecting and looking at for AUD USD. So let's move on to now USD JPY. So for this pair, again, I was looking at price to probably drop a little bit lower just before it making its way up, but that's fine. We can see prices developing and pushing up higher and higher. So now my take on this for this pair is we're trying to see where this is going to end up. So now that price is probably pushing up higher, there's a possibility that we could expect at least that drop off, because we do need to see it at some point. So that's pretty much my bias for now. I'm not looking to entertain any buys for now. Maybe on the smaller time frames towards the upside, but again, don't let that stop you, because you can easily get a few pips in, maybe on a small scale. But again, we're looking at we're paying attention to 114, so this level here should be a bit higher, sorry. Let me just double click that. Yeah, so we should be looking at this level here. I don't know why, I don't know where it's gone. Okay, don't worry. So yeah, so we're looking at this level here just to see if we can stop below this. But effectively, we are pushing up higher now, so there was no reason. Sorry, there was no reason to take a sell. Price pretty much obliterated this. So I think what the best case scenario is to possibly look at short-term buys, but we are waiting for some sort of sell-off pressure to kick in. So we will see where this goes. It may not even be that much, but we are expecting some sort of correction or some sort of retracement, at least to some degree. So yeah, keeping an eye out for that. Cad Jpy pretty much did very well this week. Had this huge push. Again, we're just waiting for the buy momentum. So essentially what I'm looking for is just price to give us a story, really, to take a buy. So we're just waiting for some sort of drop off. So we're not we haven't really got that yet. So as long as prices still continue to rally, we just have to just sit back on this one, unfortunately. But again, it's good to see that we've got some sort of bullish pressure coming in now, because we have been stuck in this pretty much sideways market for a very long time now. So yeah, we're hopefully heading to 91, 92. Break this barrier, it pretty much looks quite clear that we are bullish. So yeah, let's just see what happens with this. If we can get some sort of recovery to the downside, we could even take a sell. It really depends how deep you want to go, but we've got a lot of area to play with, so we'll just see how far this can push up. It doesn't make sense for me to buy right now. I think the best pace is to understand that we are pushing up higher. I can't see anything else I want to mention. Maybe this uptrend, maybe not too keen on that. In terms of divergence wise, it looks pretty much clear. So bullish pressure is up in hand. So all we need to do is just wait for some sort of retracement, and we could even potentially take a sell at some point as a short term. But again, long term, we are looking higher. Moving on, let's take a look at EJ. So yeah, this was a very nice trade to get involved with. So we can see price rallying up towards the upside. So for this, I think it's pretty much going to be a decider once we break 131. Are we going to see a rejection? If so, it will drop something like this. Something to be mindful of, or even to secure some profits again, or are we going to completely rally? So for now, I think this does have some strong pressure involved, and again, I think that buy well, we didn't get involved with this one, but pretty much we saw price push up, and I think price is still having the possibility to, you know, maybe have some dip, and if we can get that dip, we could actually take a look at a continuation trade. That's if we're lucky. Okay, so we'll see if we can get involved with this push towards the upside this week, and then again we're going to review 131, but ultimately we're trying to see if we can get into 134. So if it's completely strong, as if we break that 131 barrier, there is a possibility that we could head all the way back up to 134. So again, it really is about locking in profit, so it's not about this entire move or holding a trade this all the way. There's really no point. Just take what you need and go enter in and out of the market as much as you can, I guess. But yeah, so moving on now to Nzd Jpy. So for this, we're pretty much looking in an area of 79 for now. I've got this area mapped out for you know, a possibility of price pushing up, but for now I think looking at how we've been here, it has been quite choppy. So I'm gonna add in a third, well, get rid of this one actually, because I think we are moving up. So I'm gonna add in a second scenario, and that is the event of price turning over towards the downside. And if so, we could have that possibility of breaking all the way back down to the lows, to 74.5, but again, it doesn't have to be in this zone. Price could even just pop up and then drop low, do something in this nature. But again, we're just pretty much just keeping an eye out of any possible reversals within this area, really. So not necessarily at 79 on the dot, but pretty much, you know, this whole area here. So I might as well just leave it like that actually. But yeah, this 80 level I believe is the high, so again, just keeping an eye out because we could have that reversal at some point. But like we said from last week, there is this possibility of price pushing up higher. So if we can get in on some buys here, so maybe if price has gives us, you know, the possibility of dipping lower and then we push higher, you know, that sort of thing, we can try and look at a buy. But ultimately we're looking for this push up here. We're going to review how price performs around the 79 to 80 region. If we see any form of rejection, you know, we're not going to hesitate to take any sells of some nature, but we'll definitely see what's going to happen in this area. So yeah, just keep an eye out for that. AUD USD, sorry, AUD JPY. So we're coming into 82. Again, we're probably looking into some case scenario where we look at a sell again. We can get rid of this scenario actually, because I thought there was a possibility of price dropping lower. So in this area here, what we can see, obviously price pushing up higher. We were expecting price to probably drop a bit lower. As we can see, you know, like I said, it is pushing up higher and higher. So one scenario that I wanted to keep in mind with is price probably being able to push up higher from here, but I'm not really getting any strength around this area for now. So this 82 barrier, I think what I mentioned last week was that if we can break this barrier here, we're going to possibly look at either a rejection or price to completely burst through. So if we do get the burst through, again, it's a continuation play that we're going to be looking into. But if we start to see price push up and it starts to struggle and we start to see some sort of rejection, we could be looking at price to probably head a lot lower into these lows here. So just keep an eye out for that, I guess. They're the two scenarios that I'm keeping in mind for that pair. And coming to the last two pairs now, so USD Chef. So for this, we're pretty much waiting for some sort of rejection at some point, probably at 94. But again, we're pretty much following this uptrend. There could still technically be one push or higher. Not banking on anything for now, but we're trying to see if we can break some pressure lows and see if we can get a turnaround towards the downside, because there is a possibility that if that does happen, we can take out all of this, so all the way back down to 89. But again, if price continues to push higher, we'll have to look at a retest trade on this zone, so around 95, and in that case we'll have to just sit and be a little bit patient. But for now, I think there is a possibility of price, probably turning over at some point and pushing into 94, and that's probably where we're going to have to sit back and wait. So whether the price drops a bit lower and then pushes higher, that's something that we can also keep in mind as well. So again, I think that for this it's going to be very short-term trades until we break this 95 barrier. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that there and push it across. So again, scenario after scenario, but it kind of makes sense, I guess. Okay, I'll put, basically this is meant to follow onto this arrow, okay, if that makes sense. So I'll just draw in. So a drop off here, okay, the way we expect that. So again, that is a possible scenario. And finally for this week, USD Cad. So I was pretty much convinced that after we broke that 1.26 barrier that there is a potential drop off in price and it's going to drop lower. We were just waiting for some sort of retest. So as you can see, price is now pushing lower and lower, so we're pretty much following like this. So we just have to wait now. We can get rid of this scenario. We can just have to, well, we just have to wait now for price to have a little recovery, and if we can, then we can take a sell and be a part of the market for this and probably watch it drop lower. We're just going to have to see what it does around 1.24 level, or this box off region here. So that's pretty much my bias for this, but again, ultimately we are still looking bullish long term. So if this happens this week, which I highly doubt, probably next week or so, or up and coming months, that's what we're trying to be a part of the market and see a little bit of strength come in. But we'll see how far this pushes lower for now. Okay, so yeah guys, that's gonna be the end of the video. There was the NFP last week. It pretty much did some moves into the market, but in terms of like the long play, the next long-term moves, we're slowly and gradually getting involved with this. So when I mean long-term, I'm talking about the daily, weekly, monthly type of moves, in the sense where it's going to be this main trend up higher or lower. But yeah, we're starting to see a bit more of a pickup in pace in terms of the flow of the market after we've been moving out of the summer period. So from August, July, August, where banks are pretty much slow. I don't know if you guys recognize that, but I definitely did. So now things are slowly picking up, and yeah, we'll see what's gonna unfold over the next few weeks or so. So guys, if you have made it all the way to the end of this video, I do appreciate your time for listening. We do have a trading group that you can join. That link is in the description. If you have any other questions that you'd like to personally ask me, leave that in the comment section below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can do, guys. So thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you all in our next week's video.